My fiancé's family forced me out, then begged for my forgiveness on live TV. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. The night it all fell apart is burned into my memory like a scar I'll never be able to scrub clean. One moment, I was sitting at the dinner table, smiling at my fiancée, Emily, as her parents raised a toast to our future together. The next, I was being told I wasn't welcome in their home or in their family ever again. It wasn't subtle. Emily's father, Richard, stood up, his face red with the kind of arrogance only a man with too much money and too much pride can wear. "You'll never be enough for her," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You don't belong in our family. You bring nothing but shame and struggle." Emily sat frozen, her eyes darting between me and her parents. I waited for her to speak, to defend me, to tell them they were wrong. But her lips never parted. Not once. Her mother leaned in, her tone deceptively sweet but sharp enough to leave wounds. "It's better you hear it now rather than later. Walk away while you still can. Spare our daughter the embarrassment of tying herself to someone like you." I remember gripping the edge of the table, my knuckles white, trying to keep my composure. I wasn't poor. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't dangerous. But I didn't come from their world of polished wealth and old money. And to them, that was enough to make me disposable. I looked at Emily, silently begging her to say something, anything. But all she did was lower her gaze, refusing to meet my eyes. That hurt worse than her parents' words. By the end of that night, I was out of their home, out of their plans, out of the life I thought I was building with the woman I loved. But what they didn't know, what none of them could have imagined, was that fate has a cruel way of turning tables. Because years later, I'd be standing in front of a television screen, watching this same family, the one that spat me out like I was dirt, begging for my forgiveness on live national TV. And in that moment, the humiliation they poured on me would finally find its way back to them. I walked out of that mansion with nothing but my car keys and a hollow ache in my chest. The air outside was freezing, but the sting in my chest was worse. I remember staring at my phone screen, waiting for Emily to call, to text, to say she didn't mean it, that she wasn't on their side. But the silence stretched on. Hours, then days. When she finally did reach out, it wasn't the reassurance I had been praying for. Her voice cracked over the phone, but her words cut me deeper than anything her parents had said. I can't go against them," she whispered. "You don't understand how much they've done for me, how much I owe them." I gripped the phone tighter. "What about us, Emily? What about everything we planned? You were going to be my wife." There was a pause, heavy and suffocating. Then she said it. "I think it's best if we call off the engagement." The line went dead before I could respond. I remember sinking to the floor of my apartment, the diamond ring still in my pocket, the taste of betrayal thick in my mouth. I had loved her. I had given her everything I could. And in return, she'd handed me over to the wolves, her family, without a fight. For weeks, I barely functioned. At work, I was a ghost. Friends stopped calling when I didn't answer. My world had collapsed, and the people who had torn it down were laughing in their marble halls. But here's the thing about heartbreak. It doesn't just destroy. Sometimes it reshapes. Because one night, scrolling through social media, I saw something that made my chest tighten, not with grief this time, but with the sharp edge of suspicion. A picture. Emily, smiling beside her parents at a charity gala, champagne in hand, already looking like she had never known me. And that's when I knew. They hadn't just cast me out. They had used me. And if I ever wanted peace, I'd have to find out why. That picture haunted me. Emily, glowing, her family gathered around her like royalty. Not a trace of guilt, not a hint that only weeks earlier she had torn my world apart. But what made my stomach churn wasn't her smile, it was the caption. Celebrating another successful partnership with the Wallace family. Here's to many more years of success. The Wallaces were no strangers to me. They were the same investors her father had once pressured me to meet. I'd sat in their office while they pitched me business opportunities that sounded suspiciously like money laundering. I had refused, of course. I wanted no part in their games. Emily's father had been furious at my ingratitude. And now? Now Emily stood beside them, smiling, as if none of it had ever touched her. That's when something shifted inside me. I stopped drowning in grief and started swimming in suspicion. I began pulling threads. Late nights at my laptop, digging into public records, news clippings, and financial disclosures. And the deeper I dug, the uglier it got. Her family wasn't just rich. They were dangerously rich, wealth built on lies, shady deals, and backroom partnerships. And Emily? She wasn't the innocent pawn I had convinced myself she might be. No, she had played her part beautifully, smiling at me, whispering love, while quietly ensuring I never stood in the way of their empire. One night, just past midnight, I stumbled onto something that made my blood run cold. A leaked document, buried in a financial forum. It was a contract, and my name, was listed in it, tied to debts I had never taken, signatures I had never written. They hadn't just cast me out. They had tried to bury me alive under their corruption. And as I sat there, staring at the proof, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. I sat frozen, staring at the message on my phone. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. My first thought was denial. Maybe it was spam, a wrong number. But no, they knew. Someone was watching me. Someone who wanted me silent. I looked around my dark apartment, the walls suddenly too close, the silence too heavy. I pulled the blinds shut and turned off the lights, heart pounding. For hours, I replayed every memory with Emily's family. The patronizing smirks, the casual threats disguised as advice. The way her father once leaned in close at dinner and said, "You either play by our rules, or you get crushed." At the time, I'd thought he was exaggerating. Now, I wasn't so sure. The contract I had found, the fake debt tied to my name, wasn't just a mistake. It was deliberate, crafted to make me a scapegoat. If I had stayed with Emily, I might have been trapped forever, dragged down with them. But instead of feeling lucky, I felt furious. They had ripped away my life, my love, and now they were trying to erase me completely. I started saving everything, screenshots, documents, records. I bought an external hard drive and hid it in a place no one would think to look. I didn't know what I was building toward yet, but I knew this. If they wanted me silent, it meant I had leverage. And leverage could be power. Then, late one evening, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my door. Slow, deliberate. My breath caught. The shadow under the door lingered longer than any neighbors should. And just when I thought I was imagining things, there came a soft knock. 3 times. Not loud, not urgent, just deliberate. When I finally opened the door, no one was there. Only an envelope, lying flat on the doormat. Inside was a single piece of paper. Walk away. Last warning. I barely slept after finding that envelope. My mind kept racing. Who left it? Was it Emily's brother, the one who always looked at me like I was dirt? Or her father, pulling strings in the shadows? The next morning, I tried to act normal. I went to work, smiled at my coworkers, even laughed at their jokes. But inside, paranoia ate at me. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every stranger on the street felt like they were watching me. Then it happened. I returned home late one evening to find my door slightly open. Just a crack, but enough to stop me cold. My throat tightened. I lived alone. No one should have been inside. I pushed the door slowly, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. The lights were off, the air heavy with silence. At first, nothing looked disturbed, until I noticed my desk. The drawer where I'd hidden the hard drive was wide open. Gone. I dropped to my knees, ripping through the rest of the drawers, the closet, even under the bed. Nothing. They hadn't taken cash, jewelry, or electronics. Just the one thing that mattered. The proof. That's when I snapped. Fear burned into fury. They thought they could scare me off, erase my tracks, and leave me powerless. But they underestimated me. I remembered something. Weeks earlier, I had uploaded copies of the files to a cloud account, hidden under a name no one would think to search. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. Enough to show they'd forged documents. Enough to connect them to shady deals. Enough to hurt them. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had a weapon. But my relief lasted only seconds, because sitting on the kitchen counter, next to the spot where the hard drive had been, was a glass of red wine. Half full, and I don't drink wine. The wine glass sat there like a taunt. Fresh droplets clung to the rim, sliding down the side. Someone had been here, recently, watching, waiting, maybe even drinking while they rifled through my life. I backed away slowly, every nerve screaming at me to run. My apartment suddenly felt smaller, every shadow alive. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, but froze before hitting call. What would I even say? That my future in-laws were breaking into my place, leaving me creepy little calling cards? Without proof, the cops would laugh it off, or worse, tip them off. So I didn't call. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at that glass of wine. My pulse slowed, my fears sharpening into something else. Resolve. If they wanted to intimidate me, they just handed me confirmation I was right about them. And if they were this desperate, then the truth I held was more dangerous than I realized. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the hallway sounded like someone coming back. Every car engine outside jolted me upright. By dawn, exhaustion and anger had fused into something unbreakable. I went to work, forcing myself through the motions, but my mind stayed locked on strategy. I still had the cloud backup. They hadn't taken everything. But now, I needed to play smarter. Louder. That afternoon, while scrolling through news feeds, I found something that made my blood run cold. A charity gala, hosted by Emily's family, was set to be broadcast live across multiple networks. The perfect PR stunt, their smiling faces parading in front of cameras, painting themselves as saints. My hand clenched into a fist. That was it. That was where I'd strike. Because if they thought they could destroy me in the shadows, then I'd drag their secrets into the spotlight. And this time, the whole world would be watching. The announcement about the gala wouldn't leave my head. A live event, cameras flashing, microphones capturing every word. It was their stage, but it could become mine. For weeks, they'd played me like a fool, painting me as unworthy of Emily, as some parasite leeching off their perfect family. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized they thrived in shadows. Exposure was their poison. I pulled up the gala's website, studying every detail. Venue, the Grand Marlowe Hotel. Date, 2 weeks away. Broadcast partners, 3 major networks, plus live streaming. My heart raced. This wasn't just publicity. It was a carefully crafted image campaign. A facade. And I was going to shatter it. But first, I needed allies. I couldn't walk in waving suspicions and screenshots. They'd bury me alive. No, I needed undeniable proof, ironclad and sharp enough to cut through their lies. That meant going back into dangerous territory, digging into their financials again, but smarter this time. Hidden accounts, fraudulent donations, forged contracts, something was there. That night, I called an old college friend, Marcus, who worked in cybersecurity. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to make him curious. I need help accessing some files. Legal gray area. I'll owe you. He hesitated, but Marcus had always loved sticking it to the powerful. Send me what you've got. I'll see what I can dig up. 2 nights later, he called back, his voice low and tight. You weren't kidding. These people are laundering money through their charities. If this goes public, it's not just reputations at stake, it's prison. My hands trembled as I scribbled notes. Proof. Finally, proof. But Marcus wasn't done. Careful, though. Someone's already sniffing around your devices. You've got eyes on you. I swallowed hard. Eyes. Always watching. And suddenly, I knew. By the time the gala came, it wouldn't just be me hunting them. They'd be hunting me too. The following week was a blur of paranoia. Every time my phone buzzed, I wondered if it was them. Every glance over my shoulder felt heavier, like shadows stretching longer than they should. Marcus's warning echoed in my head. You've got eyes on you. I tried to move carefully. At work, I kept my head down, pretending life was normal. But at night, I dove into the files Marcus uncovered. The deeper I went, the uglier it got. Shell companies, fake charities, inflated invoices signed with familiar handwriting. Emily's father's empire wasn't just built on manipulation. It was rotting from the inside out. But the family wasn't blind. One evening, as I left my apartment, I noticed a black SUV idling near the curb. No plates, tinted windows. When I glanced back, its headlights flicked on, trailing me half a block before peeling off. My stomach nodded. Coincidence? I doubted it. Later, Emily texted me for the first time in weeks. Please stop digging into them. You don't know what you're getting into. I stared at the message, my pulse hammering. Did she mean it as a warning or a threat? I typed back, why now? Why tell me this? Minutes passed before her reply came through. Because I still care. But they'll ruin you if you push them. I dropped my phone onto the couch, running my hands through my hair. Care. That word felt hollow after everything. But something in her tone chilled me. It wasn't just fear of embarrassment. It was fear of danger. That night, Marcus called again. I intercepted some traffic. They know someone's pulling at their threads, and they think it's you. You've got to be ready. Ready. The word echoed in my mind as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The gala was 10 days away. Proof was in my hands. And now, the war had officially begun. The gala was approaching like a storm cloud, looming larger with every day. My stomach twisted with a mix of dread and anticipation. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was survival. If I failed, they'd bury me, and not just metaphorically. Marcus and I spent nights mapping out a plan. He had contacts in the press who were eager for a scandal, especially one involving Emily's family. They think they're untouchable, Marcus said, scrolling through his laptop. But a single headline can turn the tide. What we need is a moment. Something undeniable. Something they can't spin. I thought of Emily's warning text. Her family was dangerous, but they thrived in the shadows. Exposing them in the blinding light of cameras? That was where they'd crumble. So we built a trap. First, Marcus lined up journalists under the guise of covering the charity event. Then I arranged to accidentally leak a few breadcrumbs about financial irregularities tied to the foundation. The reporters were already circling like vultures before the gala even began. But the real weapon was hidden in a simple flash drive. Inside were the forged documents Marcus had uncovered, recordings of hushed conversations, and even video proof of money exchanges in back rooms. It was enough to set their empire on fire. Still, a question gnawed at me. Emily. Would she stand with them when the truth came out? Or would she finally break free of their grip? The night before the gala, Marcus handed me the drive. Once this goes live, there's no going back. They'll come after you harder than ever. You ready for that? I stared at the small piece of plastic, the weight of years of humiliation pressing on my shoulders. Then I nodded. I've been ready since the night they threw me out. What I didn't know then was that one of them was already onto me. Watching. Waiting. The night of the gala arrived, cloaked in false elegance. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, laughter filled the marble hall, and waiters weaved through the crowd with trays of champagne. On the surface, it was a night of celebration. But beneath the polished smiles and velvet gowns, the air was thick with tension. I stood at the edge of the room, watching Emily's parents bask in the attention like royalty. They moved through the crowd, shaking hands, posing for photos, and whispering promises to donors. My stomach churned at the sight of them. They looked untouchable, powerful, yet I held the weapon that could unravel everything. Marcus slipped beside me, murmuring, "The journalists are here. Cameras in every corner. All we need is the spark." The spark came sooner than I expected. During the keynote speech, Emily's father stepped onto the stage, his voice booming with pride. "This foundation," he declared, "is built on integrity, family, and the values that make our community strong." Applause thundered. My fists clenched. The hypocrisy was unbearable. Then Marcus nudged me. "Now." I pulled out my phone and connected the flash drive. Within seconds, the massive projection screen behind Emily's father flickered. The presentation slides glitched, then vanished. And in their place appeared grainy footage. Emily's father exchanging envelopes of cash in a dimly lit office. Her mother's voice on a recording, arranging a payoff to silence someone. Documents filled with forged signatures and numbers scrolling across the screen. The crowd gasped. Whispers rippled through the hall. Cameras turned toward the stage. Emily's father froze, his face draining of color. I almost smiled, but then I saw Emily in the crowd. Her eyes weren't on the screen, they were locked on me. And the look she gave me wasn't anger. It was fear. That's when I realized she knew what was coming. And she wasn't just afraid for her family. She was afraid for me. Chaos erupted the moment the screen lit up with evidence. Gasps turned into shouts, reporters surged forward, and cameras flashed like lightning across the hall. The polished, perfectly curated gala dissolved into panic. Emily's father stumbled over his words, stammering, This is a fabrication. Lies. Someone hacked." His voice cracked under the weight of the evidence. The projection behind him continued to roll. His voice, clear as day, discussing bribes. His face, on video, accepting money with a smug grin. The crowd wasn't buying his denials. Guests whispered, some pointing, others recording every second on their phones. The foundation's donors, people who had written enormous checks to support family values, began backing away, disgust written across their faces. Emily's mother tried to regain control. She stormed to the stage, her heels clicking like gunfire, and screamed into the microphone. "This is a targeted smear campaign. We will not be silenced." But the moment she spoke, another recording played, her voice, unmistakable, arranging hush money. The timing was perfect. The evidence was undeniable. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, my pulse pounded with a strange unease. Marcus leaned toward me, whispering, "It's done. They're finished." But then Emily's father did something I didn't expect. He pointed directly at me. "There," he bellowed, face red with rage. "That's the man who orchestrated this. He hacked us. He stole our private files. He's obsessed with destroying our family." Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. Whispers spread like wildfire. I felt the weight of suspicion crash down on me. Cameras swiveled. Microphones were shoved forward. Reporters shouted questions. "Did you do this? Are you behind the leaks? Is this revenge?" Emily stood frozen in the crowd, her eyes wide, her hands trembling. She looked like she wanted to scream, but couldn't. And then, security started moving in my direction. The spotlight turned harsh, blinding me. I could feel the collective suspicion in the air, like the crowd wanted a scapegoat, and I was the perfect fit. My throat tightened, but I forced myself not to flinch. Two security guards moved closer, their radios crackling. Emily's father kept shouting, "He's the hacker. He's the bitter ex who's been stalking us for months." His voice carried desperation, but to the untrained ear, it sounded convincing. Reporters swarmed me, their microphones jabbing into my chest. "Did you leak the tapes? Are you targeting the Hamiltons for revenge? Do you realize what you've done?" I could have run. I could have shouted back. But instead, I reached into my pocket and felt the USB drive pressing against my fingers, the ace I'd been saving. The room pulsed with adrenaline as I held it up high. "This," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos, "is the truth. And unlike them, I'm not afraid to let you all see it." The crowd hushed for a moment, the tension almost unbearable. Emily's eyes locked on mine, pleading, terrified. Her mother hissed something under her breath, tugging at her husband's arm. But he shook her off, face pale. The security guards hesitated. The reporters leaned in closer. The audience, hungry for blood, now leaned toward me instead of away. I could see Emily's father trembling, just slightly. For the first time since this nightmare began, the power wasn't his. It was mine. I walked toward the nearest laptop connected to the projector. The guards didn't stop me. They were as curious as the crowd now. I plugged the USB in. The first file loaded. And what appeared on the screen was so explosive, so damning, that the entire room gasped in unison. The screen flickered, and then, voices. Crystal clear, undeniable. Emily's father's voice first. "We'll frame him. Make it look like he's unstable, obsessive. Once he's out of the way, Emily will be free to marry someone better. Someone with money." Gasps rippled through the room. A few people clapped hands over their mouths. Then Emily's mother chimed in, her tone sharp, calculating. "We'll spread the rumors. Call him controlling, dangerous. People will believe us. It's easier than believing he's innocent. Once he's humiliated, he'll disappear quietly." The audio was followed by video, grainy, but damning. The Hamiltons, seated around their dinner table, plotting every detail of my destruction. The lies, the smear campaigns, the public shaming. It was all there, exposed in cold, hard evidence. The crowd roared. Reporters shouted questions over each other. The security guards froze, unsure whether to escort me out or protect me from the furious mob, now turning on the Hamiltons. Emily's father's face went chalk white. Her mother tried to stand tall, but her hands shook violently as she adjusted her pearls. Emily buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I felt a wave of vindication wash over me. After all the nights I'd lain awake, gaslit and broken, wondering if I was insane, it was finally out there. The world could see the truth. But just as the audio finished, a final clip played, one I hadn't even known existed. Emily's voice. "I don't care what happens to him. Just make sure he never comes back into my life." The words sliced deeper than any betrayal yet. The room went dead silent. Everyone stared, not at her parents this time, but at Emily. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face, whispering, "I didn't mean it." And for the first time, I didn't know whether to believe her. The air in the hall was suffocating. You could hear every camera shutter, every whisper from the stunned audience. Emily's parents had been exposed, but now Emily herself was caught in the crossfire of her own words. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide and pleading. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't. Her voice cracked, desperate, but the silence around us was louder than any defense she could muster. The crowd didn't believe her. And truthfully, neither did I. The reporters pounced. Emily, did you conspire with your family? Was your engagement a lie from the beginning? How do you respond to your own voice on tape? She shook her head frantically, clutching at her dress like it could shield her from the accusations. Her father tried to intervene, shouting that the recordings were fake, doctored, but no one was buying it. Too much had lined up, too many cracks in their stories had already been exposed. For me, it was like watching a kingdom crumble from within. The Hamiltons had spent years building their reputation on money, charm, and carefully crafted lies. Now, in front of millions watching the broadcast, it was unraveling thread by thread. But as Emily sobbed and her parents shouted over the chaos, I noticed something strange. A man in the corner, leaning against the wall, recording everything on his phone with a smug grin. He wasn't press. He wasn't security. He looked familiar. And then it hit me. He was the same man I'd seen months earlier, slipping out of the Hamiltons' home late at night when they thought no one was watching. My stomach twisted. This wasn't over. If he had been part of their schemes, then there were deeper layers still hidden. And if he was here now, recording their downfall, maybe he wasn't done with me either. The cameras swung back to me, waiting for my response. I could feel the weight of every eye in the hall, every viewer at home, pressing down on my chest. For so long I had been silenced, humiliated, pushed aside by Emily's family. But now, for once, the stage was mine. Emily's mother collapsed into a chair, makeup streaking down her face. Her father was red, shaking with rage and desperation. And Emily, my Emily, looked broken, her perfect composure shattered. Then, the unthinkable happened. Emily's father stood, straightened his jacket, and turned toward me. Not privately, not off stage, but directly into the camera lights. Please forgive us. The words hung in the air like ash after a fire. Emily's mother grabbed his arm and joined in, sobbing. We made a mistake. We thought we were protecting her, protecting our family. But we see now, we destroyed you instead. Please, don't let this be the end. We beg you for forgiveness. Gasps rippled through the audience. Some shook their heads in disgust. Others leaned forward like they were watching history being rewritten in real time. The Hamiltons, pillars of wealth and influence, were on their knees before me, live on national television. And Emily? She followed suit, dropping to her knees, clutching my hand with trembling fingers. I love you, she whispered, her mascara-stained face turned up toward mine. I swear, I never wanted it to go this far. Please save us. I froze. Every part of me wanted to scream, to laugh, to rip my hand away and tell the world what their apology was really worth. But instead, I looked into the cameras and said quietly, the world has seen who you are. My forgiveness isn't what you need, it's theirs. The room erupted. Reporters surged forward, commentators shouted into microphones, the audience gasped and cheered all at once. Emily's family had begged and been denied on live TV. Their empire was gone, their legacy reduced to ashes. And me? For the first time in years, I felt free.